I watch a lot of replays, and I watch a lot more than even I cast here on the channel. But it's hard to ignore whenever I get sent a replay from multiple different people at the same time. Welcome back to the Brightworks, everyone. Today we're going to be taking a look at a replay that, well, as I just hinted at, several different people have sent over on the Discord channel. Link, of course, down below in the description. So I'm excited to see what goes on in this game. Apparently there's some really fun antics that go down on All That Glitters. Today going to be the map that we are playing on. Spawning in the southern corner and representing the blue team, it's going to be Rise Heaven. Rise Heaven, of course, has made a debut on this channel before, and I comment every single time that I see that name how much it reminds me of some sort of an anime. Rise Heaven. Something like that. Something the American character in an anime would say. It's just a ridiculous accent. Rise Heaven going to be the blue team leader in the eco position. This is usually the player that can, in this spot right here, I'll include that Mex right there. Got a little character going on here. Anyways, in this position, this player is oftentimes the one that's in charge of ecoing as greedily as possible. That's of course because this player right in front of him, today it will be Bowal Scott, or Bowal Scott. Or Bowal Scott. However it's pronounced, our light blue player has a huge advantage against these players up in this lane right here. So you can see Nagak, our northern team spawning red team leader, wearing that Armada armor, going to be with only a few metal extractors to their name compared to the massive amount of metal extractors that are reasonably claimed by the player down on the southern side. So that's why typically this position is the eco position. Now it's not uncommon to see this player eco as well. But sometimes they have to, well, they have to contribute to the front line. There'll be run-bys, there'll be shenanigans, right? So this time, this position right here is usually reserved for a player who's going to try and make maneuvers, cheeky maneuvers around the map. I've seen drops where the player over here, typically the air spot right here, goes for some transports and gives some transports to this player. This one can go for artillery pieces and move them around the map. They can put them up on these hills up here. That's a very cheeky spot to put those artillery pieces. You can also set them back here if you can manage to get it all the way back there. There's a lot of positions where you can get those artillery units into a into quite a precarious position here for the opposing team. Either way, the front lines are going to be dictated by the well, the frontline players here for at least the first I would say 8 minutes of this game, more or less. Players, of course, in this back position here, as we've come to know, are essentially required to help their frontline partner. Otherwise, this lane falls almost every time, just because of how much metal, again, you have in this lane versus in this lane right here. Now, that being said, I do like the harassment that is already coming out on the map. I see it on the radar. There they are. A couple of little rovers have snuck across, or the mini-map rather, have snuck across to the other side of the map and taken down a significant chunk of the economy here for the applesauce lover. No applesauce in that economy, at least not anymore, because those rovers have blasted apart all those wind turbines and the metal extractor. All of that's going to have to be put back up, and it costs vital seconds that I'm sure the applesauce lover would much rather be spending pushing units out to the front lines and expanding their metal extractor economy. All That Glitters is a area map. It's a surface area map, so controlling big areas of the playable game field are more important than controlling a specific metal extractor. Now, that's not to be said that there aren't some metal extractors that are much more valuable. As you can see, there are a couple of 3.2 metal extractors out here. Oh, not that one. This one here. Out on the map, and then this one, and then, of course, the other team has some as well. Now, this metal extractor right here is very difficult to contest because typically there will be a defense set up in a concave right at this entrance here, so oftentimes this metal extractor is really difficult to acquire. I think as far as balance goes, this map might be balanced a little bit better if this metal extractor was swapped with this one. So make this one a 1.8 and then make this one the, make this one here the 1.8 and make this, or no, make this one the 3.2, make this one the 1.8. Did that make sense? I hope I didn't confuse anybody. I probably did. Should probably choose my words a little more carefully before I think. Some more, oh, not rovers this time. These are, in fact, ticks going to be moving their way across from Sinok, who is headed in a direct beeline towards the base of Tiber. Now, Tiber does have an incisor out. Incisor is a very decent option against ticks. Laser weapons in general are very good against ticks, just because you need something that can fire fast and can track fairly well, and the lasers are particularly well suited to that job. Oh, self-destruct micro right there takes out all 3 ticks. That seems like nothing, but that is a huge play right there. That's actually really, really wonderful. Ragnarok with the self-destruct micro. We hardly ever see that, and I talk about it all the time. That's such a nice little move right there. So simple, so small. Only killing 3 techs, but I'm already excited about this game. That was lovely. That was absolutely lovely right there. Just as I predicted, a couple of static defense towers are built in a nice little concave over here. I mean, this is technically a line, but you get the idea. Going to be denying this metal extractor that's oh so valuable for the red team right now, and that is just crippling here for the red player. Going to have to push back against that, fight for every inch of ground that they want to take here. Not enough build power for Nagak, actually, so he could definitely do with another constructor pumped out here. You can always hold Alt and then left click on any of these units over here, and it'll force that unit into the front of your unit queue in case you desperately need a couple of frontline units, or maybe you need to pump out a constructor or 2 really quickly. You can force them to the front of the queue by holding down again that Alt key and left clicking to add them to the front. Bumsy has managed to lock down somewhat his front line here. You can see those Rocketeers firing away, but there is artillery units laying siege to all those Rocketeers. Artillery beats Rocketeers, beats light laser towers, beats artillery. Well, not really. I guess it's more like a this beats this kind of a situation. This is light laser towers. This is LLT. This is rocket bots, RBs, and this is artillery. ART. Artillery beats the rocket bots, and both of which beat the LLTs here. I was trying to make a rock paper scissors, but it's not really how that's set up. Anyways, enough drawing aside. Artistic creativity aside here. Blue player sacrifices the commander here. I got a little confused because the blue and the purple are very similar in shade right there, but they are still distinguished. I wondered if the blue player took over for Visha. The blue player eating up the commander, turning it into a T2 lab. Very stock standard here. 630. A little bit late on that, actually. I wonder why. Yeah, usually those labs are completed by about 630. I guess just not sacrificing the commander immediately here. Does have quite a lot of metal in the bank, so I guess just not spending all the metal right away here. Not the end of the world per se, just a little bit off on the timing there. A little bit behind, but certainly, yeah, not the end of the world. Oh, interesting. Okay. Vitja has, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Vitja, has gone for quite a lot of incisors here. You're also going to have to forgive me. I feel like I'm prone to saying, you know, unwise words for the YouTube algorithm in different languages just because I'm clueless. Feel free to fill me in. I know that's happened before. I'm sure it'll happen again. The incisors are on the roll. Where are they going to go is the question. Who are we going to target down? Vodka has pushed very, very far forward here, as well as Scummer, building a nice little light laser tower line, accompanied by all of these little rocket trucks going to be firing away. I propose a change of diction for these rocket trucks, or missile trucks rather. I think we need to change the rocket bots to be called missile bots, and then we need to change the arbiter to be a rocket bot. That way, there's a difference between a rocket being something that goes up in the air and crashes back down, whereas the missile goes straight out and directly fires into whatever it's shooting at, like the rocket bots do. Just a point of clarity that I notice as a commentator, because sometimes, especially with Cortex factions that have the aggravators from the early game and then they mix in those arbiters in the late game, they're T2 rocket bots. It's very, very difficult to explain, you know, very simply what is which one I'm referring to, right? If they're both just rocket bots. Anyways, probably not something that anybody really cares about except for me. Either way, missile trucks are going to be tearing down all this static defense. Very nicely done. There is a couple of Wolverines out, and those are going to tear apart all the light laser tower defense here for Scummer. Those missile trucks are already harassing down this commander. Artillery countering with their fire of their own. The problem is the missile trucks can fire while on the move. The artillery trucks, well, technically they can fire on the move too. However, they can't hit things that are moving. So they are much better against static defense, where the missile trucks are, yeah, gonna be a little bit better here in general against basically anything. They're more of a generalist approach to solving this problem, but they're a little bit more expensive because you need a lot more of them in order to make effective use of them. Either way, the incisors have made it through. They've breached the front lines here, and they're going to be swarming the defenses. 2,000 metal worth of incisors here, so we need to see them get some work done. If we can't take out a significant portion of economy here, we're really not going to be in a good spot. This is a lot of metal to be giving away. Now, these incisors are very healthy and moving into the back line here, pressuring the applesauce lover from behind, forcing him to retreat the commander here that was already on the retreat from the front lines, but now even more so necessary in the back lines. You can see these incisors getting all the way through, popping the energy converters. That's quite nice. Going to shut down a little bit of that economy. Yellow with some crucial D-guns right here. Absolutely beautiful D-guns. Shutting down all of those incisors, all but 2 of them anyways. Very, very nicely done. Commander with 16 kills under his name, and I have a feeling all of those are those purple incisors. Oh, I'm running out of voice. Purple incisors that just got melted away, disintegrated into atoms. Sure, Gunner eventually pulled, but it's a little too late. The applesauce lever, critically damaged here. Certainly not beyond all reason, though. He's going to be able to get back into this fight here. Going to need to rebuild the economy. Does not have enough energy production whatsoever, so that's going to be a critical issue to solve. T2 is out in the back line here for the orange player. T2, I'm guessing, is already out. Yep, for the blue player is here as well. Everybody is stepping into that T2 stage, getting well acquainted with their T2 metal extractors. A couple of metal extractors that were unclaimed here. I do like that the blue player is sending a constructor forward. I think a constructor probably should have been spared for our player right here, Bewolf Scott. Yeah, I think sparing them a constructor would probably be wise. Meanwhile, Bumsy is holding the front line desperately. Those rocket bots giving his tanks quite a hard time here. Commander did go down here, by the way, and Seraph will eat up that juicy metal, turning it all back into units. But his line has been flanked, and he is now being outmaneuvered by the forces of Vodka, who have caught him in a little bit of surround here. Actually, we could turn this army completely around and just catch this commander, and I would probably say that that's a worthwhile trade right there. Interesting maneuver right there. Meanwhile, the front line here is disintegrating as those artillery trucks are more than happy to fire away. Looks like there was a comm death over here as well from Scummer, who lost his commander in an unfortunate engagement, it would appear. Vodka's force is not going to slow down there. Oh, okay, yeah, they're actually going to turn around. They're going to turn around once more. All right. Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth we go. The units will eventually decide to push forward here. However, there are those shuriken, and they are looking for the engagement. There were those shuriken. They are flying around here, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. I guess there's no units out here, so they're maybe waiting for some sort of a way to actually deal with the units, but incisors are already running through the base here. This looks like a good game. This looks like enough damage to completely cripple this team here. And yet I know that this replay goes on for quite a bit longer, as do you, because you probably can see the video length, I'm assuming anyways. How are we going to recover from this? This is a massive amount of damage. I mean, this is a game-ending amount of damage right here. Rocket bots and maces in the back line. Sure, that's a lot of metal going down, but that's effectively 2 players that are completely removed from this game. Well, 1 player, I guess. The laboratory is still up and running here for Tiber. We'll love to see the laboratory going down here for, who's this player? Seraph. Fiends are now coming out of the back lines here from Fragnarok, though, and those Fiends do trade quite well against a lot of these units. T2 just in time to save his teammate. Seraph forced off the line there, but going to get quite a lot of reclaim out of this as well. So, all said and done, I guess those Fiends are going to mop up that issue. This is an excellent trade right here. Lightning tanks jumping on top of a whole bunch of those artillery pieces, easily going to dismantle a lot of those, and we see several of those shell shockers falling. They're long, well, upwards facing snozzles, falling to ruin, debris. There is a Twitcher on the front line here. Wouldn't mind seeing this throw up some of that static defense. The Twin Guard, or even a Persecutor here. A lone Persecutor, and this choke point right here might be very, very valuable for dispersing long-ranged, I guess, Gauss dominance, plasma dominance over the middle of the map. Agitator is quite annoying here. Significant investment on Tiber's part, but he's actually overflowing a ton of metal right now. That's because his base was ruined and there is no more energy production. If you're playing in the backline, always keep an eye on that. If you see any of your teammates are desperately stalling for energy, it might be well worthwhile to give them a couple of your T1 energy producers, just if that infrastructure is available and you still have it. Nuke Rush has been completed, and we are 13 minutes into the game. The first nuke is up and running, going across the map here. This is going to be like a 13:45 second nuke crash. Call it a 13:30. Right into the back line here, going to take out all of the blue players' infrastructure. Takes down all but a lone T2 constructor here. That is a massive setback for the blue player. Excellently done with that. Nobody was expecting a nuke. That was an excellent rush right there, performed by Alaskan Warwolf. Very, very nicely done. Now, after the first nuke is launched, you have a bit of a dilemma. You can continue producing, and you continue using the nuke, right? And if you're an Armada player, the likelihood is that you probably can squeeze off another nuke before even too long. Yeah, you can see the second one is already targeting this backline player here as well. As an Armada player, or at least an Armada nuke enjoyer, you can certainly squeeze off a second nuke before antis are up and running and fully charged if you delay it a little bit. But if you delay it a little bit, of course, there's more likelihood that somebody rushed out an early anti-nuke. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. You can also take down the nuclear launcher, 8,100 metal, by the way, to build a nuke launcher. That's almost an entire advanced fusion reactor. And you can, well, you can eco-greed like a madman off of all that metal coming into your economy all at once. It is certainly an option. A little bit of a counterattack right here from the red player who's managed to sneak a couple of tanks through, damaging the construction power here, the build power on the base of Scummer. And yeah, that's actually quite nice. It's going to shut down some of that aggression on the front line. It's going to force out, at the very least, a little bit more build power. Very expensive to build that stuff. Anti-nukes are not finished. In fact, they're not even really underway here. Looks like Boole Scott has completely forgotten to micro at home. No, oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, oh, okay, I see what happened. So we accidentally locked everything onto this laboratory, so it wasn't assisting over here. He's probably gonna figure this out in a second. Try and piece together why his construction turrets aren't helping. Maybe not, though. Either way, yeah, those construction turrets are not assisting that line, and that's gonna be a huge problem. Also, a massive run-by by a whole bunch of fiends moving on to the right-hand side. I was doubtful that there was gonna be any way to come back from this, but I really think there might be. Massive nuke comes down on Seanock as well, another backline player here. There was an anti-nuke bot that was produced, and it wasn't sniped, so at the very least, that anti-nuke bot will be able to maybe go cover somewhere else. But yeah, there's been a tremendous amount of nuclear carnage already. Anti-nuke is up in the middle of the field, and it is charging up that nuclear missile. Question is, are we going to be able to squeeze off a third one before the anti-nuke comes up and is charged? I don't believe so. I think an anti-nuke charges in about a third of the time that it takes for a nuke launcher to charge up a missile. However, that nuke launcher does happen to have a little bit more experience, so it can put together nukes a little bit quicker. Not sure exactly how that stacks up. I guess we're just gonna have to keep our eyes peeled. No anti-nukes charged just yet, although there should be one coming up very shortly in this anti-nuke bot right here, the Umbrella. Putting together anti-nuke missiles is quite a bit cheaper than putting together nuke missiles. Okay, so we are 2 bases down, right? We've wiped out 2 players effectively. Seanock not rebuilding with his commander here, interestingly enough. Yep, okay, there we go. Needs, well, there, nope. Needs to move his commander, needs to start getting some build power up, needs to start getting some energy production up and running. Trying to coordinate with Bumsy there. Pumping out some engineers and some constructors and whatnot. Question is, where's this third nuke gonna land? Third nuke is headed right towards this player's main base. There is the anti-nuke bot that did survive that explosion. If this bot had gone down, this would be a completely different story. But I think this nuke is going to be able to land in a anti-nuke field, and so the blue team will finally be spared the nuclear annihilation. I think at this point, you have to just eat up your nuke launcher because you know that the enemy is going to spam anti-nukes all over the place. There's not really going to be very many openings. They're just going to be hyper-conscious about you having a nuclear launcher, so you might as well just get rid of it. Now, you could fire on this area, for instance, open up this choke point, and leverage your players over in that area into a nice little advantage. Gunships are absolutely tearing this apart, but we have plenty of fighters. Not sure why these aren't pulled. There they go. Eventually, the fighters are going to jump on top of all this, try and shoot down as many of those T2 fighters as possible. Roughneck's not the, you know, the pinnacle of damage dealing, but 310 metal per second, certainly more than happy to trade out a couple of cheap fighters for that. Anti-nuke did manage to stop that missile. Very nicely done. Blue team now fairly secure in their anti-nuke coverage at this point. A couple of rocket spiders making their way over the hills. They're not going to find very much. Yeah, Seraph still recovering from that explosion. That run-by of units here from Vodka. Vodka gave up quite a lot in order to do that, but used that leverage to go into a proper T2 economy here. Stalling on metal, which always means that I would be more than happy to see him eating up that economy. Indeed, we see those T1 solar panels being eaten up. He's also producing units at the same time, which is a little bit tricky. You usually want to go for one or the other. If you produce eco and then you go into T2, you're going to be able to pump out a whole lot more T2. Quicker you get the eco up, the quicker you spiral, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Bunch of medium tanks are patrolling the map. They're trying to find the angle that they want to engage from. That's 24 of those bad boys. Those brutes, I mean, they can pack a wall up here. There's 3 aggravators in the middle of the map. Agitators, sorry. Aggravators are the rocket bots. I get those two confused all the time. It's a miracle I don't mix them up more often than I do. Fiends here are going to engage with these tanks and immediately drive them back. Fiends can just trade so efficiently against those tanks, especially with their death explosion, because of course those Fiends are capable of running up to those tanks quite quickly. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't take very long for those Fiends exploding all over those tanks to melt them down very soon. Fighters patrolling around the map, looking for the engagement here. Rocket bots, not bad against static defense, actually. They're a fairly good siege unit. They're not often included as a siege unit. Usually we see hounds and maybe snipers. Snipers, of course, very effective as a siege unit, but rocket bots are a nice little middle ground. They do a large amount of defense against anything that they can hit, which is not a lot, right? Anything that moves effectively, a spider bot has trouble hitting. But, you know, when they manage to land their shot, they certainly can do quite a lot of damage. One Fiend running by here, and it's actually going to do quite a lot of damage. Yeah, shutting down a metal extractor, very nice. Gunships eventually are going to find this guy. Hopefully. Well, okay, never mind. Gunship's not going to find this guy, and this Fiend will manage to take out a couple of those units. Nuke was launched into this, the middle of this area right here. Didn't hit the army that I think it was aiming for, which was all of these hounds and tanks. Moving in to damage Seraph's base now. Now there are tons and tons of shurikens over here, shutting down a whole lot of these tanks, paralyzing as many of them as possible, giving the Fiends the opportunity they need in order to get in there and start burning apart all of these units. Very nicely done with those shurikens, having enough of them ready. The blue team certainly could have benefited tremendously from including a little bit of anti-air. We're just sending some fighters over that direction. Yeah, there's a couple of fighters available for green, so I'm a little curious why we're not trying to free up this army. Certainly could do a lot of damage if these shurikens weren't shutting it down oh so effectively at this point. Only a few hounds managed to leak past the shurikens here. They will be paralyzed eventually as well, and eaten up by all of these construction towers here. And there's the aggression, held quite nicely by the red team, I have to say. That could have gone much worse. That was a lot of metal in T1 medium tanks. Metal, by the way, that is now readily available here for Seraph to gobble up with all of his constructors. So I wouldn't mind seeing him use a bunch of resbots to maybe put all those back together, or just eat up that metal, transition into a proper T2 economy, maybe purchase a T2 and maybe a fusion reactor or something off of his teammates. He does already have a fusion, or a teammate with several fusion reactors, so you can always just buy one of those for $4,000 or so. Fighters taking down all those gunships there. That was a little bit of a waste, moving those gunships in at that point. Kilabar. Nuke is up. And it's coming down. Right on the front line, and it will take out quite a few units. Not bad. Pretty much the value that you're hoping for at this point in the game. Rocket trucks over here. Very powerful. Stealthy rocket launcher. See, these are called rocket launchers, and the bots are called rocket bots. So really, the bots should be called missile bots, and the hovercraft should be a rocket hovercraft. I think it is a rocket hovercraft. Seems like a little distinction. I don't know. Let me know if you think I'm crazy in the comments down below. Bulls here are going to be easily dismantling, I mean, really anything they come across here. Bulls just fabulously powerful. Fiends being sent in massive waves across the entire front of this battlefield, though. Fragnarok does have that first fusion reactor up and running. That's kind of the staple of your first jump into the economy game here. And then the next, of course, being the advanced fusion reactor, you get up a little while later. Would have liked to see that a little bit sooner from Alaskan Warwolf. I think going for a bit more build power, not a bad idea. Building quite a bit more build power is usually a necessity for the eco player. Pitbull here going to go down to a little bit of aggression from these T1 medium tanks, but that's not an efficient trade. And I don't mind that trade, trading out that Pitbull for a couple of those tanks, as well as those lightning turrets, of course, working their magics as well. Bunch of aggression from a whole bunch of bombers over here on this side of the map. Fighters will eventually... Oh no, sorry, those are fighters from the red team. Do manage to clear the skies from the green team. Kilabar caught in a tricky position here, going for a nuke launcher of his own, as well as an advanced fusion reactor. I really think we need to choose here, one or the other. But more so than that, your team desperately needs air cover, which you just cannot provide at this point. Bombers making their passes on these advanced energy converters, going to be shutting down the economies here of the players on the mountain region, the mountainous area. Not the players you want taken out of commission. That is your weakest side. You need to reinforce it as much as possible. Not a lot of bombers here, but enough to get the job done, certainly, if they make enough passes. There they go. They only need to pop a few of those build towers in order to make this effective. Nuke collides on the front lines here, taking out tons of these units. The blue team is falling apart. Where was that well-coordinated aggression from the early game? It's just all disassembled here, and now the red team has swiftly taken over the entire map with units all over the place. Tiger tanks rolling forward, distributing damage across a wide surface area. Fiends doing essentially the same thing, moving in and trying to snipe apart whatever that they can. The fighters here, of course, shutting down as much of the air control as possible. There's, of course, that ground static defense to worry about. Flag turret going to be shooting at these T1 bombers as well. And he's going to try and bomb it. T1 bomber's not really going to be enough to kill a flag turret. Those things are actually relatively beefy. But that being said, it's not like there's any air forces out anymore. So you're, yeah, I mean, you're looking at a tremendous air force. At this point, it's a lot of T1 tanks mixed in with these T2, so it looks like a massive composition. But in all reality, that is a lot of inefficient metal put into the waste right there. Excellent D-gun from this commander. Takes out some of those Centurion, takes out a couple of those bulls. Very nicely done by Bull Scout, having the commander in the right position here. A couple of Tigers continuing to assault the front lines, though, accompanied by their counterparts here, the Brutes. Oh, it must have been a sniper right there. Blew that one apart. Fiends now leaking around the left-hand sides, though, and this is aggression on every front from the red team. The blue team got a little bit carried away with their confidence there. I think they thought they had this match in the bag a whole lot more than they did. Those nukes started landing, and the players started getting wiped out of this game one by one, and suddenly the red team manages to counterattack with a vicious wave of grunts and brutes and bulls and fiends. Everybody and their mother is counterattacking the blue team right now. Green player going up to that T3 lab. Does he have enough metal to finish it? Don't think so. No. Could eat up these solar panels. Might have enough then. Yeah, that's 3,000 metal and solar panels. Probably enough to finish that up. Another nuke was launched, but it will find an anti-nuke field, and so it will be shot out of the sky in a dramatic air burst. Pitbulls here shutting down as many of these fiends as they can. Very solid static T2 defense. Very powerful, but of course only as powerful as your weakest link, and now you can see that the openings, the gaps in the armor here have exposed, are exposed, and the fiends are running right on through. Don't know what else I wanted to add on there. More syllables, I suppose. Shurikens are nice. Shurikens are pretty nice. Paralyzing a lot of this. Job's not done yet. But once they paralyze these guys, ooh, save the metal extractor. They will save the metal extractor. That's nice. Oh, going to self-destruct. You actually can't self-destruct when they're paralyzed. The command will not get through. Saves the metal extractor, so that's quite nice, I suppose. Yeah, this right-hand side is wide open, but there are units constantly trickling through. So if you want to push through that, you're going to have to fight against the stream of units, and it's going to be very, very tricky. Oh, more fiends managed to make it through. They will snipe the build power. Oh, that's so annoying. That is just more metal that you're gonna have to dump into a resource that you really thought you would be rock solid on. Another fiend over here. More fiends trying to push in on this side. Not really gonna be able to though. Those pitbulls are very, very powerful. Enough tanks over here, I do believe, to stop this push as well. The blue team is on the back foot here, and you can feel it. You can certainly feel it. And there is gonna be a Razorback out. That's quite nice. We'd love to see some resbots being pumped out at this point. Now that we're getting into T3, resbots become very, very valuable all of a sudden. Those T3 units, they benefit greatly from being healed by a whole bunch of resbots, but also you can produce a whole lot more of them if you're eating up the reclaim that's left out on the field here. So 1 or 2 resbots out of a T1 lab would not be the end of the world. You could plop one down quite easily over here. Just, whoops, that's not the key. There we go. Plop down a T1 laboratory on this build power that's not really being used, and then pump out a whole bunch of resbots, eat up all this juicy metal. You can see several thousand metal lying around and all the wreckages all over the place. Definitely well worth investing your time in reclaiming. Whoa, nuke manages to land right in the far back corner there, popping a whole bunch more of the economy here for CNOC. That is a bummer right there. Nuke is launched by the green player. He did finish that nuclear launcher, and it's headed straight towards the front lines here. Will wipe away all of the army for the red player on the front lines. That's going to slow down that push a little bit there, so I actually don't mind that whatsoever. Could have targeted right over here and actually would have gotten the hit, but maybe not completely aware of that. Doesn't have the scouting and whatnot. He is, of course, in charge of that scouting, so who's really to blame here? Tiger tanks leaking through, not enough energy to fund all of these snipers here, as the fusion reactor was killed in one of those waves. Tiger tank's going to find a already nuked to oblivion base. A lot of anti-air defense here, but that's not really going to do much to stop these Tiger tanks that are now pushing into the back line quite swiftly. Big counterattack right here, but I think there's going to be more than enough units to stop all this. Those gunships are going to be shot down very quickly by a whole lot of this anti-air. Bombers going to try and blast down those tanks, and Fiends are going to collapse on all of this. That's why those T1 units, you got to transition away from them, because T2 is just so much more efficient. You can see just how efficient this trade was. I wish I had a way to compare the amount of metal loss from the red team versus the blue team in certain engagements, but I can guarantee you there was a way, way, way higher metal loss for the blue team than there was for the red team in that particular trade. Fighters are eventually pulled here to try and kill those fighters, what killed the gunships, but that's really just sacrificing your air power, and all said and done, I think the green player is now going to be in a worse state for it. Not to mention the Tiger tank that is rapidly destroying the backline economy here. 1% at a time. He is leveling up quite quickly, though. More he levels up, the faster he fires, and eventually this could be a, yeah, this could be a kill right here. We had some gunships somewhere around here, didn't we? Could have swore we had some gunships. The Mace trying desperately to shut this down. 44, 43, 42. Eventually the Tiger's going to turn its head around and try and fire at the Mace there. D-gun will come in clutch. That was pretty scary. We could have just, of course, popped this energy converter and instantly shut down all of the build power there. Made sure that that reactor goes down quite a bit quicker. That was not the decision that was made. Resign Bumsy's team. Looks like the blue player here, the light blue player on the right-hand side, is wanting to resign. Not sure if that's the right call. I mean, the red team is starting to regain their balance, but the blue team is starting to regain their balance, but the red team does, at least for the time being, have a massive economic lead. If we get enough reclaim going, we could definitely make up the difference. We, being the blue team, could definitely make up the difference here. We gotta reclaim off these front lines. These units need to push up. We need to start trading out our armies. Holding them back here and defending is not how you efficiently trade your army. You definitely need to go get stuck in a proper fight. Think like an orc, act like an orc. Get stuck in a fight, reclaim whatever is left off the battlefield, turn it into more scrap metal that you melt down, reforge, stamp, press, and mold into armor plating to slap on a tank and get back out there for another proper brawl. Love this Thor out here in the front line. Again, would love some resbots patching up this T3 unit. Patching up a Razorback would just be a monumental use of, or a monumental effort, but it's well worth it. That's what I'm trying to say. The value is enormous. That's what I'm really trying to say. You get so much more out of repairing a Razorback than you do repairing effectively any other unit, anything less than T3. Razorbacks, of course, very nice to include in this composition because they can kill all those lighter units like the Ticks and whatnot very, very easily. The Thor, of course, the armor core of this composition here. And all said and done, I really, really like this mixture of units. There's the Resbots. They are coming up to repair this Razorback here. Very nicely done. Yeah, really, really like that. Resbot's going to be all the difference here. As you can see, that Razorback slowly climbing back up in health, and I think that's going to be a huge benefit, a huge boon to the green player here. They're going to decide to reclaim off the front line. Not a bad idea either, but we certainly should make two teams for that. A couple of red units over here, and I don't think, I mean, we should probably just try and kill these, right? All right, this is a proper T2 composition. You can see AA has been included now. The red, or the purple Armada is marching forward, although it is all Cortex, I should say. Two Thors now included in this mixture, and this is a huge, huge army. Nuke comes down right in the middle of all this static defense. There was a lot of T1 static defense, so it wouldn't have done too much against these proper T3 units, but still, taking all that out with one efficient strike, always going to be worthwhile here. As you can see, this is a gargantuan push right there. Commander Explosion does kill a lot of it right in the heart of that push, but there is still plenty of units, not to mention two Thors hiding out in the mix here. You need to keep these Thors surrounded by units so that they can't be D-gunned down. Looks like a nuke is going to land. A little bit mistimed right there. Razorbacks well into the back line, getting dangerously close to the build power. AA trucks so nice to include in this composition. Of course, going to blast down all of those bombers relatively quickly. We need to focus down the advanced fusion reactors. There they go. Advanced fusion reactors pop. Thors are still in the back line here. They can do an immense amount of damage. We really, really need to get this, get a D-gun over here. Fragnarok is the closest commander. I guess Tiber's commander was sort of in the path as well here. Not anymore though, as some more Thors are now pushing forward. and they're going to start bursting apart this entire base right here. Scuttles were produced. Not a bad option. Scuttles actually do an immense amount of damage. You can use Scuttles to kill Juggernauts even. If you self-destruct them, it only takes like 17 of them or something like that. It's a lot of them, but you know, not an impossible amount of them, certainly. Huge counterattack on the other side of the map though, as we see tons and tons of bulls from the orange player rushing on forward here. AA was also included in this mixture, so that's quite nice. We know that the green player is quite fond of those gunships, and we will see those being blasted out of the skies here. Shurikens, of course, also going to be shot down rather quickly. Vichya is not interested in using the commander, only interested in losing the commander, as it does go down right there. Gunships stuck up in the sky is going to be trying to shoot down at these. A lot of the AA has actually died already. Yeah, in fact, all of the AA has died already, so those gunships are going to have free reign right now. It's kind of a base race, if you will. Thors have managed to take out all of Ragnarok's base, and they are still roaming around in the backline. Not sure what Tiber's commander is doing. He's sleeping on the job. He needs to get his ass in position and de-gun down those tanks immediately. They're headed right for his production center. Those Thors are going to have no problem blasting down Tsars. Not the unit you throw at those. You need to de-gun them. Won't happen though, and these Thors will march on through the base. Tiber's commander will be going down here shortly as the Thors get a little bit closer. 2 shots enough from the Thors? It sure is. Commander goes down way too late on the pull for those Thors. Eventually, the push was cleaned up for the red team, and the blue team is now in a huge, huge advantage. Well, actually, I say that, but the numbers are still in support of the red team. Orange has a massive economy back here. I did not notice this. 4 T2 vehicle labs pumping out units simultaneously. We have several advanced fusion reactors back here. What is that in grand total? Looks like 10 advanced fusion reactors with 11th on the way. That's I mean, that's a massive economy here. Certainly capable of pumping out a tremendous amount of units. Enough to keep the red team in the game, surprisingly. Losing basically all of their players except for that backline. Now these Thors, of course, could push in there. They could sweep in through the backside and do a ton of damage, but they're going to have to fight against a lot of units. And you can see those those starlights, rather, bursting down these super heavy tanks relatively easily. They do a really good job of shutting those down. Bulls, of course, very powerful as well, not to be underestimated. Why did we just nuke our own tank? What on earth was that move? For some reason that tank was nuked right there. That Thor was nuked. Not sure why. Bunch of lightning tanks moving on through. Lightning tanks do have an anti-air missile, so these gunships aren't going to be a perfect trade against this. Razorback almost done. Razorback does complete, so that's going to give the green player at least a fighting chance of repelling this force, but the build power goes down. That is such a bummer. That build power was really holding this entire operation together here. Of course, it was on the front line. Green player with no other option because that's just where they spawned, and they were the one who managed to get the eco out. At this point, the rest of the team is kind of lagging behind in the T3 department here. Yeah, backline players not really producing as much T3 as is necessary. Only T3 on the field right now is that coming out of their front line, which is no longer producing because, of course, the build power has gone down. Razorback going to take a decent trade against these lightning tanks. Lightning tanks are fairly lightly armored, so the Razorback will melt them apart fairly quickly. That, accompanied with these pit bulls, going to hold on here for now. It's only a matter of time. Bulls sweeping across from the other angle, and they're going to sweep into the right-hand side of the blue team's bases and get a nice little engagement over here. A couple of bulls pushing forward would be able to pop the air player out of the skies. Kalabar's base is particularly vulnerable from this angle. As you can see, this fusion reactor already slightly scuffed, and I think that's exactly what those bulls are thinking. Take a look here at the orange player's view. You can see exactly where his eyes are focused right now. And indeed, 6 bulls will be enough to pop that fusion reactor quite quickly. Down goes the base for Kalabar, down to just a single metal extractor, some gunships, and a commander. I guess he does have that T2 constructor up in the air as well. That's a huge hit to the economy here for the blue team, and suddenly the red team is in a marvelous position. Air units have been pumped out here. Interesting. Where did those air units come from? I guess these air units were from earlier in the game, but they're going to go around reclaiming all of the wreckages left out on the field, funneling more and more metal into the economies here of the red team. The red team actually can't even spend the metal fast enough. Right now, I think they should be investing in more and more build power here, going for even more build power, pump out more and more of these tanks, doing an excellent job of coming back into this game. Thousands of metal per second versus the blue team's couple hundred per second, right? Roughneck's eventually going to be able to deal with these bulls, but definitely not a very efficient trade. this is the last remaining bastion of forces here for the red team. Ragnarok has been given a fusion reactor, meaning that he's going to be able to sustain a cloak as long as he'd like. Able to roam the map in peace here. He's actually been given 2 fusion reactors, so very well capable of sustaining a cloak. Of course, all that excess energy will just be sent back to the team. We need to build metal storages desperately. There's so much metal being overflowed here by the red team. You can see everybody's bar is completely full here. Yeah, we really need to see everybody start to build a couple of metal storages, I think. Razorback walking along on the right-hand side. Build power just came up for Seraph, rather. And he is now forced to retreat this constructor off the front line. Wouldn't mind seeing some of these constructors handed over to the other teammates here, let them start to try and rebuild. Of course, it's going to be very hard to extend out from this choke point here. This is a very vulnerable opening. Couple of spam units leaking in from this angle. I mean, a swarm of ticks, a swarm of grunts, something along that line, moving in from that angle would be able to easily ravage everything on that side. Instead, the blue team is choosing to fight this enemy head on, trying to defend against unstoppable waves. It's a movable object versus a well, unrelenting force. I think the object's gonna have to move here. Gunships are gonna be blasted down, and those are the last of the gunships. I'd be a little more careful with these if I were the air player here. Yeah, gunships falling left, right, and center as those anti-air missiles launching out of the backs of those Jaguar do manage to take them down. Zars here firing into that crowd, and that is not bad whatsoever. Those Jaguars will melt away under the Zar fire. Bulls will melt too. I mean, basically anything melts under that much Zar fire. That's a whopping grand total of 10 Zars. Nice round, even number of Zars here, dispersing long-ranged, high-impact justice out on the battlefield. Bulls falling left, right, and center. Zars, of course, very expensive, so losing them is a massive expense. But effectively trading this entire army is not going to be the end of the world as long as the blue team is able to reclaim. Units have been now positioned in both of these choke points here. The orange player recognizing that there's actually a little bit of a lingering exposure in both of these sides here. There's a little bit of a opening, a gap, a weakness in the linkness, if you will. A couple of lightning tanks moving on over on the right-hand side, though, bursting down the remainder of Caleb R's base. Yeah, Seanock commenting right now that they could probably push and win with that many Zars. I don't think he could win, but they could effectively trade against the majority of this army right now. Caleb R's commander in a little bit of trouble here. Yeah, the lightning tank's going to quickly burst down that commander. He takes down a lot of them with his death explosion, but there's still plenty more on the back of this. 20 to be exact, by the way. Gunships are out now, and again, we're fighting Jaguars with air. Jaguars have anti-air. Zar is going to do a much better job here. I mean, the Wasps do a decent job. I can't discredit that. They do a decent job. Their little missile packs a little bit of a punch, but yeah, I think I like the Zar's engagement there a little bit better than the Wasps. There's a lack of constructors being handed out here, though. Well, for the blue team. The red team is managing to hand them out to whoever is asking for them. Ragnarok is back in this game. But yeah, we are down to, what is this, 4 players, I guess, for the blue team. There is somebody restarting their base here. Bumsy is restarting their base. I think build power would probably be a little bit more important at this point. That's why we saw in that Nostradamus game, he was handing out build power to his teammates. Just those mobile constructors, those T1 air constructors. Such a powerful gift in the late game, especially for rebuilding, because that's really what you lack, is the ability to throw turrets and all sorts of other stuff back up in time. I really, really liked what he did with that. Something I'd certainly encourage anybody looking to be helpful in the back line, on the front line. Razorback's been chilling over here for quite a while, and I mean, there's not really a lot I can do. It can't take on that many units, right? That many Jaguar will certainly kill that Razorback in no time. There's also some Bulls included in that composition here. The orange player in charge of defense, both teams wanting to attack each other, but not really able to gauge the other's current static defense level. The blue team has very little static defense. The red team is starting to get there. There's a pulsar up on the field, and that's going to start bursting things down. Razorbacks, of course, very powerful. Going to be marching on forward from the orange player. I think it's about time that we saw some proper T3 production, and yeah, we can see actually leaking energy of all things at this point. You build 11, 12 fusion reactors, advanced fusion reactors, I guess it makes sense. Going to cost you a lot to pump units out of those T3 labs constantly here, but as long as we're using those units, it should be fine. A couple of them going down on the front line here, but most of them do manage to retreat away, the Razorbacks, that is. Swarms of grunts moving forward, and the Zars are going to be firing away, as well as those Banishers from long range. Banishers quite nice in an engagement like this. Going to deal a nice little chunk of damage to these units. Yeah, it looks like about 8% per shot from those Banishers. Banishers? Running out of words. Razorbacks still trading fairly efficiently here, though. Razorbacks are best when they're combined with other units, so you really want to get Razorbacks grouped up with, you know, Thors or Titans or some sort of bulky unit, right? They're great for clearing away spam. They're not so great against heavily armored targets. I mean, they're better by essentially all marks than anything else as far as T2 and T1 goes. But as far as T3 goes, they sort of almost fill a support role, oddly enough. I think a critical lack of aggression here from the blue team has eventually become their undoing, as now red forces are leaking in on the right-hand side. That Razorback is, well, he's not particularly healthy, but he's not really on death's door either. 26% is still healthy enough to burst down a Zar, maybe a couple of medium tanks surrounding it. Will eventually fall, but it has already done its job, breaking through the dark green defensive line here that held for so long, well into the early game. Dragons are out, and they're going to start firing away, but man, they are just tickling the armor on that Thor. You can see multiple shots don't even shut off but a humble percent of that Thor's health, rather. Of course, that Thor was resurrected as well, which just only adds to its intimidation factor. EMP missile would be huge. EMP these Zars down, EMP this field over here. Eventually, I do believe this Thor is going to go down, though. There's just too much stuff. More stuff in the long run, over basically any game, will beat less stuff. Down goes the Thor, and the blue team holds, at least for now. Finally, we do see some grunt spam here. Well, it's kind of a mixed bag of spams, but res bots are included in there, so big props for that. Res bots, of course, very, very powerful. The grunts were needed to spam quite a while ago. Oh, looks like there was a little bit of a run by over on this side. Little too slow, though, as there was already units for the orange player moved into position, ready to intercept that, including a couple of Razorbacks. Titans are getting ready to march out on the field, though. They're being put together as we speak in the laboratories in the back line relatively quickly, too, so it shouldn't be too long before we start to see those bad boys hitting the field. This has to be one of the closest games I've ever spectated here. This is truly remarkable. Razorback's actually doing a decent job against dragons. That's a weird bit of an engagement, but it is, I mean, something to keep in mind. Yeah, dragons are a very big target, meaning the Razorbacks don't really have a problem hitting them. Yeah, they can do a decent job. Bulwarks are up now, and that's exactly what you need against this T3 stuff. Well, any stuff, really. Bulwarks are kind of meant as a all-around static defender. They can kind of do every job. They wear many hats, and they wear them fairly well. Going to burst down a lot of those oncoming units. Dragons also contributing significantly here. Superior air power almost always wins the game and beyond all reason. If not significantly contributing, then yeah, outright winning many of the games. That's a bit odd. A bunch of res bots from Vodka have managed to sneak into the backlines here. You know it'd be a crazy play. It'd be a really, really crazy play is to go find some downed T3 unit and resurrect it and move it into the enemy's base in the backline. That'd be pretty crazy. If somebody manages to pull that off, be sure to send me the replay and timestamp it so that I know exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah, the aggression sort of petered out here, as now there is shurikens kind of stunning everything. Pitbulls closing up their little lids, trying to protect themselves. Titan is finally out on the map, though. That's going to be the first big bastion that we see out on the field. I mean, I guess there's two of them, so it's going to be the second big bastion we see on the field. Maybe it's the third one of them. Fourth one of them. They are leaking out in vast numbers, and with this many Titans hitting the field, I think once we bunch all these up and we get them behind a push of maybe some light tanks or some Jaguars or even just a whole bunch of grunts or something like that, yeah, eventually this is going to be really, really powerful. A whole bunch of constructors being sent over in this direction. Are we handing those over? Ah, it does look like we are handing those over. Okay, nicely done. I do see, yeah, there's quite a lot of constructors here for Seraph, who is rebuilding a bot lab here. Very good to see. Building those T1 constructors sometimes feels like a little bit of a waste, but I assure you it's very, very powerful. Going into a T2 bombing, well, T2 air lab, specifically for those bombers, the Blizzards. Heavy strategic bomber, very, very powerful unit. units are here are going to get to work dismantling these dragons 1% of the time. Flak turret essentially doing the same thing. AA really struggles against dragons. They're incredibly well armored. Here's a big push. Zars and Banishers rolling in. I'd love to see a little bit better control on this. The Banishers lingering further back and the Zars pushing forward. The Zars don't need to fight this Titan. What are they doing? The Zars need to go. But the Zars just push against this stream. They have an effective clearing all the way through, but instead they're trying to kill this Titan. What are we doing here? This is a terrible, terrible fight. Titan's going to ravage this front line here. I do notice that they were handed over, by the way, to Nagak because the orange player is content to pass out units to his teammates. That's always a mark of a skilled player, a wise tactician, one who is willing to hand out his units because he recognizes, you know, my APM could probably be spent better if I disperse the challenge between all my teammates here. Nicely done. Terrible engagement for the blue player here. Yeah, those Titans were not the goal. We only killed one of them too, so I mean, yeah, that's really unfortunate. That was tons and tons of metal going down right there for effectively no reason. For instance, if those Titans had just kept moving forward, right? Or I mean, if those Zars had just kept moving forward, they would have had more than enough armor. Just based on like the last one went down right now, so you can imagine the amount of distance they could travel in the time since, you know, that engagement started and getting all the way back there. There's static defense and stuff to account for as well, but roughly speaking, certainly they could have broken through this left-hand side and taken out the T3 lab, might have even gotten to the advanced fusion reactor, could have sniped a commander. That would bring the red team down to just one commander. The blue team is actually already on just one commander. It's Vodka's, and he's hiding it back here in the very back, well, back side of the map, back half of the map. This is a, I mean, as far as games goes, this is a close one. Looks like we have a player rebuilding in the back line here. Alaskan Warwolf not willing to give up yet. You see that aerial build power coming in very, very useful. Nice little tank run by over here. Sneaking a couple of medium tanks through to shut down any of that T1 economy that was coming back up and online again. Medium tanks killing aerial constructors. That's a bit odd, but we'll take it. Yeah, it's gonna force the orange player to be a little more conscious about that northern flank there, that northeastern flank there. Really doesn't matter though. These Titans need to move. I'm gonna speed up the game a little bit. Just a little bit. I think this tank push is gonna fizzle out here on the northern side. I think these Titans are gonna hold the line until we have maybe 5 or 6 of them. And then I think eventually they're gonna move through because there just is not enough defense over here. I mean, that is so many Zars, so many Scorpion turrets, so many bulwarks, but all of it melts away from long-range siege units, so there's really nothing you can do here. Yep. Northern tank push is shut down by a lot of those Shuriken. We are going into more and more T3 units. Backlines for both teams, do they have a plan here? We are continuing to grow, so that's really nice here. Rise Heaven is continuing to scale the economy. That's really lovely to see. I think a change of strategy would be in order, though. We really think we should switch away from the heavier units, the Zars, and switch into Tiger production. That's going to give you a much more flexible army, and it's going to allow you to disperse your effect more widely. When your enemy has such a strong composition, like a whole bunch of Titans and Thors marching together with a whole bunch of Bulls for fire support, and then anti-air, of course, as well, you're going to be in a position where you just effectively want to avoid this cluster. You just don't want to deal with it. Now, there is no D-gun, right? We can't spare a D-gun because there are no more commanders left over and available. What is going on over here? It looks like we have a couple of units that have spared themselves the atrocities of battle and are instead going to be taking a little island vacation on the right-hand side of the map here. Meanwhile, the red units have decided that now is the time to engage. A resurrected Thor will be melting apart a lot of these units. A lot of them clustered up, so I mean, if there was a room for the Tsar to outshine all of its competitors here, it's certainly when everything is clumped up in a nice big ball and it can get an effective AoE shot in on all of them. Thor's marching in though, and they're so tough to kill, especially if you don't have T3 of your own here. I really think that's the biggest blunder that the blue team went for, is taking too long to get T3 on the field. We do see a T3 lab and a Juggernaut 95% of the way through. So close to finishing up here, but just a little bit too slow. These Razorbacks are already moving in. Big airwave marching forward, or flying forward, I should say, already. They do find the advanced fusion reactors, and they're gonna dive. Dive, dive, dive. Boom goes the advanced fusion reactors, and that is all of Vitja's base. More bombers will be spared over here. Oh, will they get it? Oh, it's close. Oh my gosh, 5% left on that second bombing run coming in here. There we go. Second bombing run will kill these fusion reactors, and that is going to be the main force of the blue player down as well. Vodka's commander, the only one remaining at this point. Multiple players indeed going to submit this game as, yeah, I did receive that replay from multiple different angles, which is quite funny. Nice little deacon there from Vodka. Did shut down those Thors, but this is just a uphill battle for the blue team at this point. 178 metal versus 793. There's really not much more to say about this game. All of the economy has been blown to smithereens. Maybe they had a chance when they had those advanced fusion reactors, but at this point, this is just a dying gasp. Drongo doesn't play bar anymore, is that true? Oh. You guys bullied him off a bar, huh? Well, I'll be damned. A couple of nuclear bombers sent over here to deal with that advanced fusion reactor. Not a problem. Green player will tap out of the game. And it's just a matter of time before that commander goes down. We're going after the Juggernaut for some reason. Ragnarok, absolutely right. Time to play Find the Last Commander. They do find it eventually. Scummer takes over the commander. Oh, and resigns. Caleb R, the only player left in this game. Any stakes in the matter. And that is going to be the last remaining commander for the blue team going down. What a back and forth. What an absolutely wonderful match that was. I don't even hope you enjoyed. I know you enjoyed, because if you made it this far, you've certainly got a taste for the highest of quality Beyond All Reason matches. That was an absolute smackdown. What an absolute treat. And I am thrilled that I was able to take a look at this replay. That was a really, really special one. Thanks a ton to all the players who participated in this. GG across the board to all of you. GG, well played. Thank you, no problem. Coming in with a phenomenal economy right here. Very, very nicely done. And I guess that's all I have to say. Game of the year, maybe? Potentially? Thanks a ton for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next one. This has been The Brightworks. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace out.